Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. We're live on YouTube. We want to bring in our Facebook groups as well. Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons and Scott Kennedy Sports. Thank you for your patience on YouTube. While we get that done, we'll get it started on a glorious Friday morning in the Southeast. Welcome in, everybody. This is a Friday morning edition of the Falcons Podcast. We're glad that you are here watching today. Going to be a beautiful Friday heading into spring break here in Fulton County. I'm in North Metro Atlanta, Georgia. We are 1 month away from the NFL draft, and right now it seems like the most common refrain amongst the NFL draft analysts, experts, people in media is that the Atlanta Falcons aren't going to stay at 8. We'll see. Now, we've done some things where we've seen some trades and whatnot, and I frankly happen to agree with them. I think coming out of that 8 spot, once you've got your quarterback and Kirk Cousins set for the next 2 years, I think is a really good option for the Atlanta Falcons. Trading up, not necessarily. The guys that you're trading up for right now are wide receivers or quarterbacks. No, not for me. If you want to go offensive tackle because of the age of Jake Matthews or right tackle Caleb McGarry, you can do that by still trading down or even maybe staying at 8 and taking Joe Alt. Lots of good options. We're going to get into all of it over the course of the next hour or so. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on these channels because we like having the conversation with y'all. I say we because it's usually me and Nick. But Nick has been off on Fridays while he's taking care of his daddy duties with working on not necessarily a newborn anymore. We're going on 3 months old already. Time flies when you're having fun. But I want to say hello to some folks that have come in early before we even got started and hit on their questions, like Victor Belletti. He comes in, he says, good morning. If we trade down, trade out at number 8, and we trade back up into the 25 to 32 range, what would be your thoughts on getting Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas, or Johnny Newton, defensive tackle out of Illinois, if available, instead of a cornerback? Victor, I think in the 25 to 32 range, I think Byron Murphy is going to be gone. So I would probably say I'd be okay with Murphy on a best prospect available type, too good to pass up in that type of area. But probably pass on Johnny Newton at that point. I don't think defensive tackle is that great a need, relatively speaking, to the players that will be available at other positions in the late 20s. So would I rather have Johnny Newton or Cooper DeJean? Probably rather have Cooper DeJean. Let's say I go corner, I trade down, and I take corner early. Would I rather have Johnny Newton or Chop Robinson? Probably Chop. I'd probably rather go that direction. So defensive tackle, to me, isn't a big need for this team. Great. If Grady comes back healthy and David Onyemata, I'm set there. I got Taquan Graham coming back. I got Zach Harrison, who's got some inside-outside flexibility. Now, the other guy in that range that you're speaking of that's got some of that inside-outside flexibility would be Darius Robinson. Darius Robinson's listed as an edge, but he's going to play at close to 300 pounds. He's weighed 287, 288, right in that neighborhood at the Senior Bowl and the Combine. He's a lineman. He's a Zach Harrison type lineman who I think is a better prospect coming out. So you can move him inside or outside. So if you're looking for your big guy in that range, Victor, Darius Robinson might be the guy in that area. Jeremy Sean, he says, good morning, Scott. Good to see you, Jeremy. I think the Falcons could maximize their draft by trading down 3 to 5 spots and still landing a top edge guy or a guy like LSU wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. Wide receiver is not completely off the board for this team. You know, I've sat at 8 and watched this, done a zillion mock drafts, and I've had Marvin Harrison fall to me once or twice. I'm like, yes, please. I'll take him. Don't even look to see who's the next guy available in that case. The two guys that seem to sometimes be available are Rome Odunze out of Washington and Malik Neighbors out of LSU. Possibly. Now, there's no way those guys are going to be there. Well, yes, there is. When we start talking about 4 quarterbacks going in the top 6 picks, let's just say top 7, since Falcons pick at 8, 4 quarterbacks going in the top 7. You've got 3 elite wide receivers. There's 7 guys right there. You've got Joe Alt's considered a franchise left tackle that somebody could want. There's 8 players. One of those guys is going to fall to 8. I think Falcons are hoping it's probably a quarterback. I don't think it will be. But if you're the Atlanta Falcons, who do you want to fall to that spot? You want a quarterback to fall to that spot. Why? Because you can start a bidding war at 8. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think I think the top 4 quarterbacks, there's going to be enough interest that a team like the Arizona Cardinals will be the team to move out of there, and somebody comes up and grabs one of those quarterbacks. And we speak of J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels. And then you've got the three quarterbacks, the 3 receivers, and the tackle that I mentioned. So Brian Thomas not off the board for sure. And, moving back makes a lot of sense for this team. It really does, because the defensive guys that you covet are basically 8 to 20 type of prospects right now. And there's a bunch of them. Edge and corner. Yes, please. And yes, please. Those are arguably the 2 biggest needs left for the Atlanta Falcons right now after securing Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Marley ATL, good morning, Scott and Nick. It's a good morning, Nick. Nick's up. I've already heard from him this morning. I sent him a link. I said, hey, if you're bored, come on in. So he's up. He offers up some coffee. Here's to you. I'll drink to that. He says, I see Coach Raheem Morris has a sight set on an edge rusher and another quarterback. Who could be the better option? So they're going to bring in another quarterback. They're going to bring in a third guy. That's inevitable. I don't expect to see Logan Woodside come back. Some people have talked about him. Let's see what Logan Woodside could do. Logan Woodside's thrown 4 passes in 4 years as a 7th-round pick. What about Brock Purdy? Well, Brock Purdy played as a rookie, and he played early. It's really tough. I don't have any expectations that Logan Woodside would turn into something or be back on this team. However, you could draft a guy in the later rounds and see how he develops, and maybe you swing and get lucky. I don't think you use a pick in the first 2 rounds. Now, edge rusher, Marley, and outside linebacker are basically synonymous these days. They're the same position. So a defensive end is a bigger guy in a 4-3. An outside linebacker is now basically called the edge rusher in a 3-4 type, a walk-up, stand-up guy. So your outside linebackers, in this case, most of the time, they are considered edge rushers. They're synonymous. So I don't think the Falcons necessarily need another inside linebacker. I don't think they got Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson coming off of injury. Nate Landman had a really good season last year. So you got 3 guys there. Now on the outside, you're talking D'Angelo Malone, Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie. So I'm looking at, could you make a move for Hassan Reddick? Maybe. You probably could. There's been a lot of links to there that people are linking him to the Atlanta Falcons because it makes sense. And you could draft one. If you watched our show on Wednesday, we drafted 2. So not only did we trade down, we took Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. I've already forgotten at this point. And when we got to 23, when we made a trade after trading back a couple of times, we got Leatu Latu. So I was like, well, let's just take care of that right now. Reminds me a little bit of the 1988 draft. The Falcons went outside linebacker with Marcus Cotton and Andre Bruce on back-to-back picks early. Hopefully these guys would pan out, have a little. Andre Bruce had a pretty good career. He was labeled a big bust. Hell, he played in the league for like 12 years. How bad could he have been? So he had a decent career. Wasn't quite what didn't live up to that number 1 overall, but he played in the league for a long time. So could be a remembrance of that. Silas Draven, good morning, Scott and Nick, and everyone else. That's all, y'all. Drink to that. Facebook guys starting to open up a little bit. Eric says he's been on the night shift, but he's here today. Well, we're glad you're here. Pamela Johnson, good morning. Glad you're joining us today. And Jason Heller, there's the Hassan Reddick talk. How about a pick swap with the Eagles for Hassan Reddick and draft a quarterback early in the 20s? Works for me. I'm okay. Again, I'm okay doubling up at edge. It's a big enough need. You've heard me joke about it before. How many times you said, as a fan of the Atlanta Falcons, you said, no, we're good at pass rusher. We've got too many of those. We don't need any more. No. Load them up. There's one guy I think that's got a future on this team right now, and he's still not, a star player. He's a good NFL player right now, and that's Ebiketie. So the Falcons, I think, could go too. But let's go through it, and we'll see. What might be available to us, because we had our choice of, I think, Cooper DeJean and Leatu Latu, and I'd be happy going either way on that one. What we did when we trade down is we watched. There's 4 corners that we like, 4 of them. And when 3 of them went off the board, we hit stop on the draft. It's like, okay, here's where we're trading. We traded back up because I think Cooper DeJean was the fourth one. He was still available. Then when we looked, wait a minute, Latu's still there too. Now, it wouldn't be quite that hectic on draft night. You get 10 minutes, not 10 seconds to make a decision. So, but we're going to go through all that, and we're going to hit on a couple of the trade scenarios I've seen bouncing around. First, I want to say hello to Mark Schrader out in Texas. Good morning, Mark. I appreciate you joining us. He's breaking the ice on the super chats over there on YouTube with that orange. It's about what the sky was looking like this morning. Hope you're having a great day out in Texas. Made my day better already. I'm going on programming note. I am going on vacation. Yes, that sounds weird for if you know me at all. I've done like 2 vacations in 10 years. But I'm going out of town for a full week next week, and I'm coming back on next Monday. So we will be gone. We'll probably make up for it and do a Tuesday show. So make sure you hit those alerts. If you haven't subscribed already, hit subscribe so you get those alerts. So we'll probably do a Tuesday show. At least I will. A Falcons podcast when I get home next week after spring break, because I'm coming back. It was like $500 a ticket cheaper to come back on Monday. I'm like, yeah, we can come back on Monday. So we're doing that. So programming note on that. So thank you, Mark. Jacob Coons coming in as well. Hopefully I got that name right. Coming in with some support, and I'll keep an eye out in the chat to see if you have a question that goes with it. Coach, Supers are rolling in now. Makes me feel good. Thank you for the support that y'all show the show. He says, good morning, y'all. That's to all y'all and me. That's all of us. Appreciate your work, Scott. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for the support. It means a lot and helps keep these lights on here nice and bright and the forehead shining bright on these morning shows. It's worked out good. We weren't sure how to start. I said, let's do mornings. With my schedule, with my family and stuff, the evenings aren't great for me to do these, and there's a lot of primetime shows to choose from. But the mornings have been kind of our thing here, and I'm certainly glad that you are with us. Let me take just a moment. Apologize to y'all that are watching live, but I want to bring up the Facebook groups, and we're saying hello to some folks over on that side too. It doesn't show quite the same on StreamYard as YouTube does, so I have to bring up a separate window. So when you see me looking back and forth, that's kind of what I'm doing, is making sure that I'm not missing folks coming in with support, like Keith and Ellen Johnson coming in with stars over on Facebook as well. And Keith and Ellen Johnson says, good morning, Scott. Love this time of year. It's my favorite time of the year. Hope we pick up edge and quarterback plus one more wide receiver. I'm with you on that. And then some developmental positions that are premium positions would be great. Some offensive linemen, get a flawed offensive tackle. Oh, I like him, but he's a little underweight. Okay, we can put weight on the guy. He's a little raw. Okay, he fell. Let's season him up and get him going. Special teams are going to be big, but yes, that's kind of where I feel the biggest needs are too. Except safety. I think safety is in that as well. Edge, cornerback, safety are the 3 biggest needs on this team for me right now. And then go another one with wide receiver. You could absolutely use another wide receiver 1 or 2. If you're sitting there at 8 and you're looking at Rome Odunze and you're looking at Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. for some reason he falls, and you're sitting there at 8 and you think, let's see, we've got an offer to trade out. We got Dallas Turner on the table. We got Jared Verse on the table. We could do a lot of things. Would not totally surprise me to see the Falcons take a wide receiver. It's a different skill set type. I think all 3 of these guys are probably better prospects at the time than Drake London was. And if you can say, yeah, Drake London's our number 2. Kyle Pitts is our number 2 option because we just got a Jamar Chase, a Justin Jefferson type. That'd be tempting. It really would, especially as expensive as the wide receivers have gotten. When Calvin Ridley is getting $25 million a year guaranteed for 2 years, as he's turning 30 years old with his history, the wide receiver market is silly. I don't want to have to go into the free agency to get wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy, who the Denver Broncos gave away for a 5th, signs 2 years, $41 million guaranteed, getting 20.5 guaranteed. They were happy just to get his $13 million off the books. So wide receiver is in play for sure. And Archangel says, I want Jared Verse. That's my guy. I have no problems with that. I usually go Dallas Turner when I'm picking these. I favor that, but I wouldn't argue with this. They're close enough that I'm not going to have that argument with you. If you say I really like Jared Verse, now there will be people in my mentions who will tell me I'm an idiot and then tell them that they're an idiot for they like one guy over the other. Close enough for me, dude. I'm okay either way. James Harp, love it. He says, new listener Scott, good morning to all Falcons fans. Well, glad you're here. Here's my 2 cents worth, everyone. We've got to get tough on the edge. I don't care how we do it. If you're a new listener, James, you might not have heard me talk about that under Terry Fontenot. This is their 4th draft cycle. Their first 3, the free agents and the draft, haven't really lined up to address the edge rusher position. Now, you can go and say, well, what about Micah Parsons? Micah Parsons was a linebacker, not an edge. That he could possibly transition and do some hybrid roles and play some edge helped his stock. And his pro day was unbelievable. So you're like, yeah, this guy could play edge. But there would also be some people that say, okay, I'm getting some Vic Beasley vibes on hits with the size profile. In a redraft, you take Micah Parsons, no doubt about it. But at the time, I don't consider him as an edge option. And after that, Lucas Van Ness, you were out on Aiden O'Connell, Travon Walker. Those guys weren't available. Free agents, no. Now, in the last 12 months, Josh Sweat was available. Brian Burns was kind of available. I don't know if the Panthers would have done anything there. Hassan Reddick seems to be available. And now there's a couple of guys in the draft that make sense. There is no excuse this year not to go big on the edge position, one way or the other. Eric, he says, Latu, most pro-ready, polished edge in this draft. He's pretty darn good. The way he's able to do combination moves, he's instinctive. He'll, it's, it when you see it. How do you measure balance or vision in a running back? You don't. But by God, when you see it, it. It's not something you can look at a spreadsheet and say, well, he ran a 4.57 and this guy ran a 4.52. I like this one better. No, you got to watch him play. And he is an instinctive pass rusher in setting up his moves, getting a guy off balance. The same way Barry Sanders can juke a guy out of his shoes. There might be guys that are just as quick as he is, have, the same shuttle times or L cones or 40s or whatever, same height and weight. But the instincts to set a guy up and break him down is what I really like about Laiatu Latu. So I agree with you. And Michael, good to see you, Michael. Our friend, got our international group here is our Puerto Rican contingent. He says, we need a corner too. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Raheem Morris talked up some of the guys that were in the defensive backfield that they really liked, that he thought surprised him or played well. He hit on D. Alford as a hybrid guy who can play some safety. He hit on Mike Hughes playing pretty well. He liked what he saw from Clark Phillips. We know AJ, we know Jesse. He didn't mention Richie Grant, which I thought was a little surprising, but said, yeah, we'd like to get some younger guys back there. So I don't know if they're going to be in the veteran market because, there's still some pretty good veteran safeties out there, like Justin Simmons is a perfect fit for this team. If it might not be a perfect fit financially, if you need to come up with $7 million and you want to try and get Hassan Reddick. So we will see good options. Hill Hillman, good to see you. Good morning, my brother. Fingers crossed for Latu. There's good options. There are very good options. Now, don't try and outsmart the draft. Brad Clark says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you. Eric Note says Joe Alt may be a good option than trade Jake Matthews to the Jets for the whole draft. Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think the Jets would rather come up and get Joe Alt themselves. The dead cap wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for Jake Matthews. You got one more year of being financially tied to Jake Matthews, and then you have options, which are good because he's still a good player. You don't mind extending, kicking the can down the road when they're still good players. It's when they're declining and you start having those contract extensions and deferred money, et cetera, that it becomes a problem. So Joe Alt may be a good option, but I don't think Jake Matthews is going anywhere on this one. So we've got some more guys coming in. Here comes, let me see. It was Archangel coming in. Good to see you, Archangel. Appreciate you being here. He says, morning, Scott. with his super chats. What would be your thoughts on double dipping on Verse and Renardo Green, cornerback, both from Florida State? I know more about Verse than I do Renardo Green at this point. So, but I am absolutely okay if he fits your board where you go corner. It doesn't bother me they come from the same school. I don't care. Is their profile, there's some people say never take an Ohio State quarterback, never take a USC quarterback. No, I disagree with that. I do. They're individuals in there. If you trust the talent, never take a small school guy. They play against lower competition. And as I've thought about that, if you've been a fan of Georgia high school football and followed the process, man, the legends of Georgia high school football came out of double A and single A ball. If you take Herschel Walker, if he's at Callaway or if he's at, I don't know, if he's down somewhere at Hawkinsville where Charles Johnson played, or if he's at Parkview, he's still Herschel Walker. So these guys are still it doesn't change who they are based on where they go. So Jared Verse or Renardo Green, it doesn't bother me that they're both from Florida State taking the same guys. If Jared Verse is your guy, if Renardo Green is your guy, take them. Because edge and corner, love to see the Falcons come out of this with two premium guys in this draft and then somehow address safety. And I think you've won the offseason, so to speak. Archangel, thank you so much for the super. Jason, Oblivion Empire coming in. He says, what's up, guys? Have a great show and vacation. Well, thank you so much. Plan to. Going to go do some scuba diving. It's one of my favorite that I'm getting older. Actually, just scuba diving is awesome. I'm a big nature guy. And going scuba diving and getting down there amongst the wildlife who really don't care that you're there or not. It's very cool. I say it's kind of like going to the zoo, except the zoo depresses me because these animals are in cages because they're real territorial. So it's like, oh, let's go over to this little reef structure. There's an octopus that lives over here. That's his home. Okay, cool. So going 5 days of scuba diving and taking my kids, got them certified over Christmas. Pretty excited about it. So thank you so much, Oblivion Empire. Gonna have fun. So want to say hello to a few more folks in the chat. Keith is here. Good morning, Keith. Appreciate you showing up. He's got some stars too. Andrew Newman, I see you coming in here. So we're going to go back to back. He says, Scott, if you were to align needs for the Falcons with positions that have the best success as a rookie, what position would you pick at 8? I think wide receiver is becoming the easiest impact position. So I might go that direction. If you're going to say, okay, who is our biggest impact? Running back is that way too. We talked about last year a lot. I wanted to see 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns from Bijan Robinson. He came close last year. I think he was a little short on the touchdowns from scrimmage. I think he was above that last year. There shouldn't be a breaking in period. And wide receivers, it used to be, there was a breaking in period for wide receivers, but I think the rules have changed enough to open up the passing games. And these kids are playing so much football. They're playing passing leagues, 7-on-7s constantly. You only play 10, 11 games a season in high school football. Then you go to college and you might play 30. But they're playing year round now that I think wide receivers are available. I think the trenches, the big boys, I think it's harder to make an instant impact, but you still have to go that direction, which is one reason why this is my, ADD kicking in as my voice is saying, but what about this, Scott? Hassan Reddick makes a lot of sense. So you go with a veteran and a rookie. You can absolutely go edge with the Falcons. If they wanted to they've talked about bringing in a veteran edge, getting better in the pass rush. It could be two guys. It could absolutely be two guys. As Tim says, need edge. Need edges. need edges. Andrew Newman, thank you for the stars. It's great to see you over on Facebook. Andrew says, is there enough in this draft to draft down and get Latu or Chop and another high second? Let me use this as a segue to talk about Chad Reuter's on NFL.com. He did 6 trade scenarios that make sense. And it's one of the top stories. So just go, I'm not going to link it. It's just NFL.com by Chad Reuter. Now, he has the Falcons trading back to number 12 because he has originally the Broncos trading up and then they trade back down with the Cardinals. So the Broncos trade with the Cardinals. The Cardinals move to 12. The Cardinals move back up, and the Falcons are drafting at 12. To move from 8 to 12, he has the Falcons getting a round 3, number 71 overall to move from 8 to 12. That's not enough for me, Andrew. Falcons fans, that's not enough for me to move from 8 to 12. I want at least a 2. So if I move down and I take that 2 and I'm now picking at 12, I could get one of the guys. I get one of the big guys that you're looking for. Now I've got 2 2s and 2 3s. I can absolutely put 2 of those together and move back up into the back end and get a first round pick, which is some of the things that we like to do. But that was his trade scenario. Number 12, they go the number 12 and number 71 for number 8. Not for me. I want a little bit more than that. Maybe throw in, if I'm going to take a 3rd, then you're going to throw me a 4th or a 5th too, or maybe a next year's 3rd. So I don't particularly like that one that he came up with, Andrew. Chris F says, if we get Penix, what happens with Heineke? Chris F, this is interesting. Tori, I can never pronounce Tori's last name. She writes for AtlantaFalcons.com. So she's one of the Atlanta Falcons official beat writers, and she did a mock draft. Now, you've heard me say before that when we're doing prognostications, and I've been harping on this week because see people say stuff like, Terry Fontenot won't do this, or he really likes this guy. We don't know any of that. There are no facts. There is no right and wrong in March about this. So Tori came out, and I've said before, and I'll say this about her mock draft: let me be wrong before you tell me I'm wrong. So Tori actually has the Falcons trading out of the number 8 spot and doing a pick swap. She's got the Falcons trading with the Vikings. The Vikings receive the number 8 overall pick and the Falcons' 2nd overall. So they trade 8 and 43, and the Falcons get back 11 and 23. With number 8, she has the Vikings at number 8 taking Michael Penix. That would surprise the heck out of me. that would I'm not going to say she's wrong, because she's not wrong. That would be surprising. That would really surprise me on this. Now, the next pick, the Falcons ended up taking Jared Verse with the first pick, and then again, the second surprising part of this, the third surprising part, because Rome Odunze goes number 17 in this mock. I'm like, well, wait a minute, somebody's missing here. Oh, here's Rome Odunze at the bottom half of the first round, when he probably won't come out of the top 10. And then they have the Falcons taking Quinyon Mitchell, the cornerback, out of she has the Falcons taking the cornerback out of Toledo at 23. Quinyon Mitchell could be the first defensive player off the board. She's not wrong. She's not, because it's a prognostication. It's a prediction. There's no way she could be wrong yet. Let's just say there's a few of those moves in there that would absolutely astound me if they came to being. But if you get Penix, what happens with Heineke? Nothing. Heineke's a backup on this team. If you still need to free up some money, you still can, but you lost a chance to save even more money when his roster bonus kicked in. So instead of being able to save 7, you can save about 5.5 if you were to move on. But a redshirt year for Penix might be pretty good. But I don't think you spend a 1st or a 2nd on quarterback this year. And I don't think Penix goes out of the 2nd. We'll see. We'll see. With his injury history, we'll see. But if he goes at number 8, I will be absolutely shocked if he goes top 10. Top 10, that would be shocking to me. Chris Walker, good to see you, Chris. One of our OGs, been with us from the very beginning. He says, as a long-suffering Falcons fans, I understand that we would have done much better last season with better coaching and better play calling. There is talent on this roster. It's so much better than the year that the Mariota experiment went terribly wrong. Yeah. The Falcons in 2021 were old and going against no young players, really. And 2022 was the dead cap year. That was the year where they were playing with half a roster. Marcus Mariota is your quarterback. And if you go back to Spot Rack and look, between dead cap and injured reserve, by the end of the season last year, I think they had over $100 million not on the field. That's insane. That's really insane. That's a little bit what the Denver Broncos are going to be feeling this year with their dead cap. But the Denver Broncos roster was in a better position than the Falcons were in 2022. They were old in quarterback change. The offensive line was in a bad way. You know, the 2021 offensive line wasn't very good. They made a big leap in 2022. Taquan Graham made a big leap from 2021 to 2022, which helped solidify the trenches. The trenches in 2022 got a lot better. There was still a lack of playmakers out there, but now you've got those guys. You've got plenty of playmakers out there, and you're hoping to tie it all in. Last year was so disappointing because you played really well, relatively speaking, to go 7-10 in 2022. I thought was an outstanding coaching job from both Arthur Smith and his staff, and from finding guys that could come in and play, like Cordero Patterson coming in on the cheap. Abdullah Anderson doing a job in the trenches, defensive tackle. The step up from Caleb McGarry being one of the top 10 offensive tackles by PFF. Chris Lindstrom was a revelation. He's just really good. The Iron Man at left tackle, you know, to win 7, I thought was really, really good. Then last year was disappointing. There was more talent on the team. You put all your eggs in a guy that you didn't really battle test at all in the previous year. You didn't, and I'm talking about Desmond Ridder. You didn't go out there and let him play in the preseason, and it went poorly. And no, I don't think the roster is as bad as it showed. No, I don't think Arthur Smith is as bad as the team's play showed. I think together it all went up in smoke. It was a bad combination. Denver Luke says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you, Denver Luke. Glad you're here. Let's see. I think we're caught up on a lot of these. Want to make sure I did get Andrew. Want to make sure that when we do our roundups, I say thank you and don't forget. Andrew, I'm going to forget if I don't find it and star it, but I'm afraid I'm going to. So Andrew, here we are. So we'll make sure we put a mark next to that one. I'm going to scroll down and say hello to some folks that have come in here too. Pakti Sum coming in says, good morning. And Chris, just following up on the wide receiver discussion. Someone might have paid him more. Wide receiver is overpriced in the open market and probably will be for a while now. It was more than I liked, but less than it could have been. We were talking about Darnell Mooney on this one, possibly. There's a lot of guys in there. And Eric Ortiz, he's also in Puerto Rico. So good to see. I haven't been to Puerto Rico yet, so I guess I'm going to come down there. We'll do a Falcons pod in Puerto Rico. He says Tom Zach wasn't bad for an Ohio State quarterback. Again, I'm not judging a quarterback by his school by any stretch of the imagination. I'll judge a quarterback by his quarterback. Victor, he'd be really happy. Victor Atkins, good to see you. Love that bike. He says Quinion Mitchell will be a great cornerback. He's from the University of Toledo. Pakti coming in. How likely do you think we trade back? I think it's our best move. I think it's probably better than average right now. I think the odds of trading up are 1%, and I think the odds of trading back are 51%. So I think it's better than there's a better chance to move back than there is to stay put. I think the key to this really is, though, you want one of those quarterbacks to fall. You're going to maximize your value in a trade if someone comes for a quarterback. And if there's one of those quarterbacks there, 71, I haven't gotten to the comments, the reactions on this yet, but I would agree here that I think that y'all would agree with me. At least a 2 for that. I'm not trading from 8 to 12 for for 71 for a third. So if those are your best offers, y'all, when we did our mock on Wednesday, I couldn't get a 2. I said, the hell with it. We'll stay at 8 then. And we did. So on that note, we stayed at 8, and then we made it a trade back up. I'm getting my mock drafts confused. When we traded down, that was the Denver Broncos, and we traded down twice from 12 and ended up taking Bo Nix at like 23 and got 4 picks out of it. For the Falcons podcast, we used a 2 and a 3 and traded back up and got Leatu Latu. So apologies on that one. Ryan Adonis, good to see you, Ryan. He says, I think we go best prospect available at 8 if you stay put. And I agree. And I think it's just a question of where you think that is on your board. Joe Alt may be the best option depending on how the draft goes. Where does Alt go if it was last year's draft? Last year's draft. I've got draft brain. So 2023 draft. If I'm looking at this, does he go ahead of Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, or Anthony Richardson? Probably not. I might say he goes at 5. Depending on what Seattle does, they want defensive back Devin Witherspoon, but Paris Johnson went at 6 to the Arizona Cardinals, and I think he goes ahead of Devin Witherspoon and Paris Johnson. I would say no lower than 5 in last year's draft. Joe Alt goes there. Great question. That would be my prediction. Trying to mix and match these things can be a little tough. 5. Joe Alt goes no lower than 5. I think Indianapolis sitting at 4. They needed a quarterback. They weren't coming off quarterback. So that would be my guess on that one. Curtis Case. Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Curtis. Good to see you. Let me see here. We Sound Strange. Welcome in. Been hitting me up. I know you're having some fun with these mock drafts too. He says, Tavondre keeps slipping when I do my mocks. Should we get him with our 74? If Tavondre Sweat, giant nose guard, is available in the 3rd round, you take him. Unless he's just off your board for some reason. No, we don't think he can move well enough. Whatever it is, I'd take him in the 3rd. Abso-freaking-lutely. Corey asks, good to see you, Corey, says, what trade should the Falcons do in your opinion? I'd move down. If we're at 8, we're drafting at 8, and someone says, let's go, I don't want to go really below 15, which is where the Colts are, and I don't know if the Colts are really interested in moving up. They've got a lot of good options too. So that 11, 12, 13 with the Vikings, Broncos, and Raiders seems to be the sweet spot. That's kind of where I would go if I was in charge. Ryan Adonis, if Drake May drops to 8, what do you do? Wake up and hit snooze. I roll over and hit snooze because I'm dreaming. But I don't think Drake May, there's any chance he drops to 8. If he does, I'm on the phone. And I'm moving because I'm getting a hell of a lot more than a 3rd round pick if there's a quarterback there. If one of those 4 quarterbacks are there, for some reason, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels is too skinny. We're afraid he's going to get hurt. Whatever it is. I don't like Caleb Williams crying on the sidelines. He falls. Whatever it is. One of those guys falls to 8. Then I'm hunting for another 1st round pick for someone to come up. I'm hunting for the Justin Fields deal. Think of that. Think of what the Bears gave up for Fields. They gave up a pick and another number 1 to move up about that far. And I'm going to do it for a 3rd? Hell no, I'm not doing that for a 3rd. But I'd be on the phone. I would love to have Drake May. I'd be tempted to take him, but I think the Falcons would probably trade back on that one. So let me check Facebook over here. I think we're all good. Leon Mapstone just showing up. He says, hello, Scott. I'm just tuning in late. Oh, good to see you. Good to see you. Chris Walker asks, how much of a drop from Joe Alt to Patrick Paul? Pretty significant. Patrick Paul right now is Joe Alt is what you're hoping Patrick Paul can turn into. Joe Alt is already that guy. And those are the ones you say, well, this guy's got more upside, whatever, that's fine. When you're looking at a draft, I like to think of it as a 2-line scale, think of it as a chart. And there's athletic prowess up, let's say up the y-axis, and across the x-axis, I know there'd be no math, is how good a football player they are. When you're drafting late, and this is, I swear, what the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens do, you're drafting in the later round and back into the 1st, you try and get somebody that isn't going to be high right on this because those guys go top 10. That's athletic prowess and football prowess. That's what you're looking at. They try and draft guys that are pegging one or the other. They're either phenomenal football players or they're phenomenal athletes, but they're raw and they're not great football players, or they're great football players, but they're 2 inches too short, or their arms are 31 inches instead of 33. But they're pegging one at the very top or far right. They're just not high right. Those guys go in the top 15. Joe Alt is high right. Patrick Paul right now is higher on the athleticism scale. So he might be even in the athleticism scale, but he's not the football player yet. So there's a chance there that he falls down. We Sound Strange says, what's your opinion on Luke McCaffrey in the 5th? God, we're flying. We're 40 minutes in already, y'all. This is going fast. I'm going to have to try and get to a mock here shortly. Luke McCaffrey in the 5th, I would expect him to go earlier than that. If he's there in the 5th, I would take him absolutely. At the very least, I have a special teams demon, and I probably have a little bit more than that. I like his athletic profile. I like his hands, body control. You start talking about pedigree. This is a guy who's grown up around big time football. He's not going to be scared of the moment. Good brain on him, played quarterback. So Luke McCaffrey, wide receiver, I would absolutely snag him in the 5th if he is still there. He might be. I can get him in these drafts. He's rated in the hundreds on PFF. Darius Mayfield, appreciate the support coming in, Darius. He says it's Quinyon Mitchell season. There is a lot of buzz for Quinyon Mitchell. And let me see. I thought him and Darius Robinson were the 2 best prospects. Quinyon Mitchell. I thought him and Darius Robinson were the 2 best prospects at the Senior Bowl. Quinyon Mitchell then goes to the combine. He's 6 foot, 195 pounds, 31-inch arms. Turns in a 4.33 40. 38-inch vertical, 10.2 on the broad jump. Quinyon Mitchell is going to made himself a lot of money this offseason. Goes to show you, and I don't know how often this is going to happen with the transfer portal, where a guy like this comes out of Toledo because Ohio State snags him in his 3rd year, or Michigan snags him in his 3rd year. He goes back. I'm not sure if he's been at Toledo the whole time. I don't remember off the top of my head. But he goes in from a smaller school. If you can play, you can play. And he made, he made himself a lot of money at the Senior Bowl, top performer, lockdown guy, and then goes to the combine. He's like, okay, I like what I see. Told you this is part of scouting. If I'm seeing a combine for the first time and I see a guy run 4.33, I'm like, all right, you got my attention. Let's go watch football. In this case, we do it backwards because the combine is one of the last things they do. We watch football. Ooh, I like what I see. Now let's check the numbers and see how they translate. Doing that scale that I'm talking about as far as football player along this way and athleticism up the Y, he's high right. He's athletically gifted and he's a phenomenal football player. Quinyon Mitchell, Darius, I'm with you. If they said number 8, Quinyon Mitchell, well, I'd hope they'd already gotten an edge rusher, but I could live with that pick. He's really, really good. Cornerback is on the table at 8. He's somebody I'd really like to trade down for, to move back. He's one of those guys I really want to move back a couple spots, pick up another day, trade back into the back end of the 1st, and get maybe a Latu falls to 20. Maybe Chop Robinson. I want cornerback and edge. And then if you trade down well enough, maybe I can still get a wide receiver too in the 2nd round. Like I've been saying, y'all, very, very good options for the Atlanta Falcons. This is a fun time of year. I had people ask me, Scott, how'd you get into this business? I was director of scouting at Scout. How'd you get into this? I'm like, well, I really developed an interest in the draft process because of being a Falcons fan in the 80s. They had one winning season in the 80s. I was 7 years old, 1980. The rest was, okay, I'm looking at other teams and I'm watching the draft process. I love it. This is my favorite time of year and part of that was because of the team that we had growing up. You were out of it by October 1st. So you had to look forward to other things. And the hope is, I don't know what you're saying, Scott. You cannot say these guys are pegging each other. If I did, I'm not sure what you mean on that one. But if I said something wrong, it won't be the first time. No harm intended. But the hope of the draft is what's fun. It is. And the Falcons are in a better option than they've been in a while. Braden Fisk out of Florida State. Speaking of Florida State guys, y'all, Braden Fisk made himself some money at the NFL Combine and Senior Bowl as well. He might fall into the second round because, again, he doesn't have those measurables. His arms are 2 inches too short for what people like. He's not 6'6". So, but he's the one pegging that football player board and the quickness. But he's a flawed prospect because he doesn't quite have all the measurables. I'll take him in the second round. Somebody very, very interested in him in the second round. Defensive tackle gives you somebody else in the pipeline because Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata are in their 30s and not going to play forever. Dave asks, he says, Scott, do you get the sense the Falcons will resort back to an undersized front? It depends on how they're lining up. If you want to go 3-4 in a pass rush situation, you can go, Taquan, Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata. Those are 300-pounders. If you wanted to go four down linemen at the time, I can go Zach, I can go Taquan, I can put Lorenzo Carter's hand in the dirt, and then my 2 interior linemen, I'm going Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. Those guys are really, really good. So big and mobile. There's just not a 330 run stuffer in there right now, which is why Tavondre Sweat would be nice. But Onyemata and Grady Jarrett are good enough with Taquan coming back fully healthy. I feel pretty good about the interior line. I really do. Brian asked me, he says, where did you go to high school, Scott? I went to Riverwood. I've been to Riverwood a couple times this year. I went to Pope. I opened up Pope. I was a Walton kid up until 8th grade, and then they opened up Pope, and I was the first freshman class there. I still think of Pope as the new school, and fall of 87 was almost 40 years ago. So, yeah, I did. I was in one of those East Snob guys. It's changed a lot. East Cobb got old. That's where all this, it was crazy to me, about 10 years ago, Sprayberry, not Lassiter or Walton, they stayed big, but Wheeler, Pope, they're all dropping down in classifications because everybody's parents, all the boomers still lived in East Cobb. All the kids moved away. So now it's kind of refreshing a little bit. All of us, we moved to Woodstock or DeKalb or Johns Creek, Milton, that area. So very interesting for me in the dynamics of the urban sprawl of Metro Atlanta. God love it. I moved back here. I moved back here in 2016 to raise my kids because I was in LA, and then I did a stint in working out of Manhattan, and I wanted to get back down here where it just seemed a little more sane for raising children for me. So there you have it. Michael Ranquillo, good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in late. I'm glad you're able to make it, Michael. Sunrise, it's not the same here without you. And Brian says he lives there now. Stephen B., Pope class of 95. So 91, 92, 93, 94. So I would have missed you. You were in 8th grade when I was a senior. So yeah, Pope was good. Stone Mountain, lots of guys here. We can check in the comments on this. With this podcast, with the Falcons podcast, there's probably a lot of folks that went to local high schools around here. We're at 48 minutes. What would you say to a mock draft here? And we'll check out some trade options. I'm not taking the 3rd round pick that Chad Reuter suggested, but we'll take a look. It's going to take more than that. Black Mario 618, he says, I like your idea of doubling down on edge rushers. If we can somehow get back in the 1st round. Yeah, I wouldn't, just because you do something doesn't mean you don't have other options. Coaches don't necessarily, some of them don't admit to second guessing themselves, but you're weighing your options, you're weighing the percentages. In my mind, I'm like, okay, I got a 60% chance of doing it this way, the 40% chance of doing it that way. I went this way, but I certainly understand the argument for this. So last week, we doubled down on edge. But if someone were to say, Scott, why didn't you go corner there? I considered it. Absolutely. But it is an option. If I were to come out of this with it just giving up my 2nd, 3rd round pick and my 2nd to move up to another 1st and come out of this draft with Dallas Turner, Jared, 2 of the 3 guys, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Leatu Latu. Yeah, I'd be real interested. So let's take Pensive, as Dave says, we're not doing politics in here. You get one chance to prove that you're not some spamming troll. After that, you're gone. We're not talking politics in here. So I might make some veiled references every now and then, but we are not doing that. So let's do a mock draft on here. I've got this set up already. 7 rounds. We'll consider trades. I want to hit present screen, share screen, entire screen. And we'll go here. We'll use PFF again. I think they've cleaned up their board. We sound strange. Appreciate you checking in and the support that you are showing the show. So thank you, my friend. And Jacob says, try trading into 2 first-round picks. I'll have to slow it down just a little bit to do that because it goes so fast. So we won't do turbo. We got some time here, right? We'll do medium speed on this. And we'll give it a shot here. So I've already picked the Falcons. We'll kick up the randomness a little bit. The needs, I like positional value a little bit more. Needs a little bit less. Everything look good, everybody? All right, here, let's hit enter draft. We'll hit start draft. We are not trading up, so I'm not too worried about that. And I can live read these. Caleb Williams, J.J. McCarthy, Jaden Daniels, Joe Alt, Marvin, Rome, Dallas Turner goes at 8. So we have 10 trade options. Ryan Adonis, you called it. Drake May or Malik Neighbors. How am I can't come out of this spot, can I? At number 8? I mean, if 2 of these guys are on the board, you can. What did Flo say? Anybody old enough to remember Alice, the whole diner show? You can kiss my grits on 3rd round pick for coming out of 8 on this spot. No, you're at least giving me a first if these 2 guys are on the board. Oh my goodness, this would be Dallas Turner already went. I'm sitting there looking at Drake May. I'm sitting there looking at Malik Neighbors. No matter what I do in this spot, I am going to catch hell because you didn't need a quarterback, brother. I'm not passing on these 2 guys. I'm just not. I can't fathom Drake May being here. I really can't. If he were there, I'm taking him. I'm absolutely taking him. So let's see what is available here. The Denver Broncos want to make a move with me. And number 8, it's costing you around 1. And it says it will not be accepted. The hell it's not. You don't think the Denver Broncos would send me their 2025 number 1? There's no point in forcing this trade because we don't get to pick anyway. So yes, in this case, draft a player. Where'd draft a player go? I would take Drake May. I would also probably take Malik Neighbors. Cooper DeJean falls. They've got him. You see his average draft ranking. Quinyon Mitchell, someone we talked about. Jared Versus still be on the board at 17. I'm taking Drake May or Malik Neighbors. Either way, he says, Stephen B says, draft May, trade Cousins in a year. Mike says, you got to take edge. I would trade back into the first round to get an edge at the bottom. There's no way he's going to be here. There's no way I could pass on him. This one's tough. I'm going Malik Neighbors. I'm going Drake May. I'm not passing on Drake May in this case. Pause draft. Let's see if we can get down into the 18 range, 19 range with the Steelers and see if we could. Let's see who's still available. Quinyon Mitchell, Brian Thomas, Jared Verse just went at 15. Terrion Arnold. That means Cooper DeJean is still there. Looks like Leatu Latu is still there. Now I'm talking to them about 20 and all from 43. And let's say the Calvin Ridley pick has no chance of being accepted. So around 4 in there too. And yes, this is less than what they wanted us to get from you just alienated Cousins. Maybe he's there for 2 years. Mike, it's a mock draft. Relax, brother. Drake May, if Drake May's quarterback possibly won in this draft and a number 1 overall pick, you're not passing on that at the spot. You might make a trade, I know, but it's a mock draft. In considering it's a mock draft, this is like Madden. I'm not alienating anybody because nobody has any feelings on this. So it is. It's a mock draft. Having, May as a backup would make the season still interesting if Cousins were hurt again. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy. Frankly, if Drake May were available at 8, they wouldn't have signed Kirk Cousins. That's the way I see it. I am going to force this trade and move back up into 20. I don't care if they don't like it or not. And here, I've got Cooper DeJean. I've got Byron Murphy, the talk of the best available prospect here. That came up earlier. I've got Johnny Newton. That was a good discussion. And I've got Leatu Latu. In this case, I'm going to get my edge here at 20, and I'm going to go Leatu Latu. I think this is a viable option for the Atlanta Falcons. Not only if for some reason a BPA, a best prospect available, comes in and falls in your lap, one of those wide receivers, I still don't think they do it for quarterback, but one of those wide receivers, and you say, I can't pass on this guy. I cannot. Then it becomes a very viable option to trade back up into the back end of the first round and get your edge. So I just got Leatu Latu there. I'm not doing any more trades now. So it'll slow down just a little bit, but it's still going on at a pretty good pace. And pretty happy with this. We're going along. And this is the problem with doing a 7-round mock and slowing it down to a point where you can pause it in time. We got rid of our second, so we don't draft again until 74. But again, I want to show you all that these are the options. If 4 quarterbacks and 3 wide receivers are considered the premium prospects in this draft and you're at 8, all it takes is one guy to change. Joe Alt to move up, Dallas Turner, someone wanting an edge. It takes one guy, and you've got a dilemma, a good dilemma on your hands at 8. Well, there's Spencer Rattler. Maybe we should get him too. I'm teasing. I actually really like Spencer Rattler in the 3rd. I think he's got a chance to go top 50. I really do. Would you rather have Bo Nix? I think if Jeremy's still in here, my fans from my Broncos fans that are watching, would you rather have Bo Nix at 12? Or would you rather have Terrion Arnold or Jared Verse and Spencer Rattler? I got a feeling I know what I'd rather do in that case. But I think they're really good trade down options also. I got my edge. I got a quarterback that I could probably spin to somebody next year for a top 5 pick, to be honest with you. Brett Favre this thing and take him and trade him next year if you needed to. But again, someone could probably, I'm still on the board there. I'm not passing up Drake May at 8 in a mock draft. Michael Ronquillo says he'd still be taking Bo Nix. Okay, I see that. I'd rather have a premium position defensive player and Spencer Rattler. So give me Quinyon Mitchell and Spencer Rattler over Bo Nix. I'd rather go that direction. I'm going cornerback here. I think it's time to try and get my cornerback too. I really like Max Milton. So I'm going to go ahead and pick him. James DeRoca has a good question. He says, isn't Spencer Rattler a problem child? He was, let's just say, humbled. The character concerns there were real. Coming out of high school, these guys get treated like gods. Going to Oklahoma and having all the success that he did as a freshman, his ego was out of control. Sophomore season, getting talked about as being a possible number 1 overall pick. Comes in, doesn't play that great, and Caleb Williams comes in and takes his job. He's humbled. He goes to South Carolina in relative obscurity. I know, no offense, South Carolina fans, but you didn't hear as much about him at South Carolina as you were at Oklahoma on a national stage. And they loved him at South Carolina. And you listen to his interviews, and he seems to have learned, even if he's just faking it, he's at least faking it the right way. So Spencer Rattler was humbled in his experience and grew from it. And he's got the arm, man. He absolutely has the arm. So I do like Spencer Rattler. I'm willing to let these guys grow up. If they give them a chance to grow up, some of them actually do. 109, not going running back. I'm probably not going Eric All there. DJ James is okay at corner, but we went there. Cade Stuver at tight end. Y'all know where my tight end is on this. He's down the board a little bit in Theo Johnson. Safety, I do like Tyke Smith as a safety, and we're talking 4th round. I'm going to go dogs here, and I'm going to get a safety in here that I can send into that I can put into the mix. Physical. I really liked how he played at Senior Bowl. I didn't watch him as much at the University of Georgia, so hopefully some of my dogs can weigh in and say, no, that's not the guy. He was a liability in coverage or whatnot. But I did like what I saw there. Ooh, here's another one of those guys. I mentioned Darius Robinson playing 290 listed at edge. Justin Aboigbe is also going to play at 300 pounds. I really like him in this range if he was available. Here's one of my cheat codes, Theo Johnson, number 2 tight end with a 40.5-inch vertical leap at 6'6", 260 pounds. Yes, I'm going this way. And Carson says, I prefer Javon Bullard, to be honest. Carson, as you said, not available at that range. That's right. Javon's going to probably go in the second round. So good call on that. You know what you're doing. I'd be happy with a 300-pound mobile defensive lineman with inside-outside capabilities, but I take Theo every freaking time here. It's just, I don't know if that's where he'll go, but I'll be really surprised if he goes that low, just because of the athletic prowess that he has. I mean, he's a 10 on the relative athletic score, which combines him. Bullard is my safety one, Cedric says. Not that anyone cares. Cedric, I care. I appreciate you weighing in. So thanks for being part of the show. And James likes Theo Johnson too. Theo Johnson, again, he looked good at Senior Bowl. Now let's see how he looks at the Combine. See how those measurables. Oh my God. He had one of those type of days at the Combine. Jalen Simpson, we went safety here. Now I'm just kind of looking for guys that I think can contribute because we're in the 6th round. Marcus Harris, I like his quickness inside. Steel Chambers. Ethan Driscoll is a good developmental tackle. We talked about him a little bit. Javion Cohen isn't all bad at guard. If I could go, Justin Schaefer was just released by the Falcons. Falcons need a linebacker. The Steel Chambers, that guy. And again, Corey, I don't know that you need a linebacker. Coming back with Troy Anderson, Nate Landeman, and Caden Ellis, I feel pretty good there. You're looking for a 4th guy. I'm going safety here. Again, we get a lot of new watchers. This one happens a lot. Speaking of athletic profile, you're looking for traits. I mentioned the graph. How good of a football player is he? How athletic is he? If I'm drafting down in this range, I'm looking for someone that's high or wide right on one of these. Tanner Bortolini had a record-setting combine performance, and I liked what I saw out of him at the Senior Bowl. His ability to get to the second level is going to be next level, and Drew Dahlman could use some competition. So I'm going Wisconsin center Tanner Bortolini there, and then we're going to finish up here. And I could still go Marcus Harris, defensive lineman, Jace McClellan, Omar Brown, Johnny Dixon, Andrew Coker, and then I'll use Nick's cheat here. He says I like, as far as he likes to pick Jalen Ford in this area. Corey, there's your linebacker. And Corey says it's not the best linebacker room. Dude, it's not bad. Caden Ellis is pretty damn good. Troy Anderson is very gifted physically. Nate Landeman did a job. Who has a great linebacker room anymore? Talk about a devalued position. James Durocco says, how about Sundiata Anderson, edge from Grambling? I don't know anything about him, but I'll check him out. Appreciate the heads up. Let's take your linebacker here and finish up. And then I wish you could just go finish draft. That would be nice as we go through this. But you could absolutely have the option, and it comes down to yes, I want edge at 8. But if I end up having one of those guys that I grade higher and I've got to go through it all, I'm sure the Falcons were at LSU's pro day, probably at Washington's, probably at North Carolina's too. One of those guys falls. You have to consider not taking an edge. So is this a possibility? Not really. I don't necessarily think so, but I'm not passing on him if he was actually there. If he falls to 8, something's wrong because he doesn't get past freaking 3 as far as I'm concerned. And if he's willing to fall to 8, he's probably going to fall a little farther. This is the option that I would like to show y'all in here. I think it's very, very plausible. If I take my second and pair it with a third and move back up into the back end of the first, maybe I have to throw in a 2025 round 5 or something like that to make it happen, I can then come up and maybe get Leatu Latu, Cooper DeJean, Chop Robinson. I think it could absolutely happen. And then we went best available prospect that fits some needs, which includes cornerback, which includes safety, and then a couple of athletic freaks here at the back end of the draft with Theo Johnson, tight end. You could use a backup tight end. Charlie Warner's been signed, but that's not a long-term option. Theo's got some huge upside. So does center Tanner Bortolini. What I'm missing here, I'd still like to sneak in one of those tackles, maybe Roger Rosengarten, maybe Patrick Paul. You lose one of those guys when you make this trade, I think, when you trade away 79. I can live with that. I can absolutely live with that. So, mock draft. It's been trade season when we're talking the NFL media doing their trades. And, Ryan says, I think the Falcons have one of the best linebacker rooms of most teams. Can you imagine Ellis Anderson and Landman on the field at the same time? That's a 4-3. I don't think we'll see that too often unless Landman's up at edge or Anderson is up on the line, playing on the edge for sure. Then it could happen. Rob Choppinson, yeah, I like him too, and his brother Chop. So there's going to be a lot of options here. This is the most fun thing. I mean, they make movies about Moneyball and about draft day, about being in this position in order to wheel and deal. And it's fun. And I think it is. I think Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons have set themselves up really well, that they don't have any glaring needs. I agree, edge, but that can't be addressed, that have to be addressed in the top 10. The needs that they have can be addressed later on in the draft. That means I could address 2 needs with 1 pick if I trade down. Going to be one. And Chris says if May is there, you have to take him. Yeah, he ain't going to be there. So, but again, mock draft, fun. I'm probably not passing. If Malik Neighbors is the one that falls on, he could absolutely be the pick. You're going top 10 4 years in a row on skill players. Yes, I am. Because those wide receivers in free agency, he's going to be a $25 million wide receiver, and maybe I could spin him for 2 first-round picks or Drake London if I need to, if I can't afford to pay all of those guys. So we'll see. On that note, y'all, I am going to get out of here. I'm going to be gone for about 8 days. So the next Falcons podcast will be a week from Tuesday. So we'll see unless, something goes crazy, then I'm going to log in from Mexico if I can get Wi-Fi, and we'll hit some breaking news. Want to say thank you to our Super Chat supporters today. We Sound Strange coming in. Darius Mayfield, Andrew Newman, Keith Brugman, Oblivion Empire, Archangel, The Coach, Jacob Coons, and Mark Schrader kicking us off. I think I got everybody that came in today with the support. Thank you so much. That's all I got today, y'all. Appreciate you joining me. The Friday shows have taken off because of people like you. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. It's going to be a gorgeous weekend. Opening day. Hope you're watching the Braves at 3 o'clock today. I know I will be. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you next time. Oh, look at that before I sign off completely. Here we go. Greg coming in. Interrupted. Everybody signing off. Greg, thank you so much. He says, good morning, Scott. Glad to support. Didn't see your alert because I was distracted playing Helldivers too. Glad to support you. Thank you for the support. You do you, brother. You take care. These are on demand. You finish your game. Come watch us. Thank you, sir. Y'all have a great weekend.